families, creating a lifetime of memories. Sadly, some families are denied these important moments due to the sad practice of alienation. These are families divided.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Families Divided TV. Parental alienation is a serious mental condition that affects hundreds of thousands of children and families all over the world. However, parental alienation is unusual because a huge amount of misinformation has been published regarding this topic in journal articles, book chapters, and books for professionals and also for the general public. Dr. William Bernet has conducted extensive research on parental alienation misinformation and has recently published a new article on this topic. He's here to share in this presentation with Families Divided TV, and he'll help you to understand how to distinguish true from bogus statements regarding parental alienation theory. I want to publicly thank Dr. William Bernet for all the work he does in this and helping us to know the truth from the lies. We truly are happy and thankful for all he does for us that are alienated family members as well as professionals who work in the field of alienation. He's helped tremendously for many, many years, and I want to publicly thank him for doing so. Dr. Bernet is board certified in child psychiatry and forensic psychiatry. He is a professor emeritus at Vanderbilt University School of Medicine in Nashville, Tennessee. We'll be hearing this presentation from Dr. Bernet in just a moment. We're also going to have Chris Smith, who will be one of our presenters at our upcoming fall conference this year. And he's going to be sharing with you part of his presentation and a brief summary of it. And we're looking forward to him presenting. The conference title is Alienation, the Truth Regarding the Trauma and Abuse. This is a huge topic of great importance to all of us, both professional and those who are alienated family members. There are 11 presenters at this 2.5-day virtual international conference, and their topics are really, really off the chart. So I hope you'll be able to join us. We are in a special for this right now in registration. So the pricing is the lowest it's going to be, and this will run through the end of February. So I hope you go ahead and register, as many already have, and we look forward to you joining us there. We have many things planned, not just the presenters, but many other things. And you'll find all this information listed on our website, familyaccess.info. We're going to be hearing from Dr. William Bernet and Chris Smith right after these important messages.
Divorce and co-parenting are a major life interruption for families, especially the kids, but also for parents and grandparents. And it's even worse in blame-filled, high-conflict cases. When parents engage in alienation by turning the kids against the other parent or grandparents, kids suffer. They're denied the opportunity to build the 4 big skills necessary for future resilience. New Ways for Families online class can help. Parents learn to use our popular BIF and EAR skills to calm the conflict and stop the hostile emails and texts. And we even have a class for kids and parents to learn together. Research shows a 75% improvement in joint parental decision-making after this course is taken, plus overall improvements for kids' well-being. Don't wait to make this affordable investment in your children's future and improve your well-being too. Start learning new ways for your family today at conflictplaybook.com.
Hi, everyone. My name is Chris Smith. I am a family law attorney in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. And on October 13th through the 15th, I'll be participating and speaking at the conference Alienation, the Truth Regarding the Trauma and the Abuse. I hope you'll join me. I'm going to be talking about parental alienation. and the fact that there's plenty of blame to go around as it relates to the issue. As we all know, parental alienation is a known tactic used by family law litigants to gain leverage in custody cases. However, a parent can only alienate as much as the family law system will let them. Judges, attorneys, psychologists, therapists, CPS workers, everyone in this entire system plays a role in every case and every alienation case, especially. So I want to talk about that. And I want to talk about how the system allows for the unjustifiable division in distance of children from the target parent. What can we do as an industry to better safeguard against it? I'm very excited about this topic because I think it's one that doesn't get talked about enough. It's one that sometimes gets lost in the noise. There's a lot of conversations around the fact that targeted parents are, the victims. There's a lot of noise regarding the alienating parent. There's a lot of noise regarding the argument as to whether parental alienation is real or not, and whether it's pseudoscience or not. I really want to talk about how the system that we are working in and is contributing to the alienation of children from their parents and the systemic issues within our family law court system that we need to be addressing. I want to talk about what those are. I want to talk about how we can counteract those issues and maybe some tips and ways to try to avoid the pitfalls that can sometimes result in alienation that doesn't have to occur. For example, if you are a parent who is not getting an opportunity to see your child, are you making sure that you're doing everything you can to try to get back in front of a judge as soon as you can? Or are you allowing time to go by that you don't need to? There are some specific things I think we can all do as attorneys. We can do them as guardian ad litems. We can do it as mental health professionals to help try to avoid unnecessary distance between parents and children during the process. I want to talk about how we can counteract those things, as well as any potential policy changes we might want to be talking about to safeguard against alienation by the court itself. I'm really excited about this. I hope you'll join me. I hope you'll join us during this conference, again, October 13th through the 15th. Alienation, the truth regarding the trauma and the abuse. Join me as we talk about where we can point a little bit of blame beyond the alienating parent in this systemic issue. Hope you'll join me.
Hello, I'm Dr. William Bernet. I'm a child psychiatrist and a forensic psychiatrist in Nashville, Tennessee. And the topic today has a somewhat catchy title. It is Parental Alienation Contagion, an Epidemic of Misinformation. So misinformation refers to false information or false statements that are made in published articles or in presentations or sometimes in magazines or newspapers having to do with parental alienation. And we've studied this quite a bit over several years. And I think that what this will do is presenting and talking about this topic helps you understand parental alienation theory, correct theory, but I think it also helps you understand the opposition to this, to parental alienation theory. So the first part is I want to do, like I frequently do, is I want to give you the definition of parental alienation to make sure that we're all on the same page. So let's read through this together. The definition is a child, usually one whose parents are engaged in a high conflict separation or divorce, ally strongly with one parent, we call the preferred parent, and rejects a relationship with the other parent or the alienated parent without a good reason. So the phrases here that are probably most important are that this frequently occurs in the context of a high conflict separation or divorce, meaning there's a lot of arguing going on between the parents about the children or through the children. And secondly, that the rejection is without a good reason. So some people like these diagrams. Here's a diagram of a family in which you can see that the little arrows going back and forth, that there's conflict between the preferred parent and the alienated parent, and that each one of them blames the other for what's happening with the child. In other words, the child rejects one of the parents and each parent blames the other. And in the next picture, that little red arrow, or I'm sorry, the little yellow arrow is what we call parental alienation. In other words, parental alienation is what is happening in the child, is the child's mental state or the child's rejection of the alienated parent. And in the next picture, the big red arrow is what we call alienating behaviors. So as I think most people understand, the alienating parent engages in alienating behaviors, and that causes parental alienation between the child and the rejected parent. So this topic today focuses on misinformation regarding parental alienation. So there are many examples of misinformation or false information, and we've written about this for years in articles and book chapters. But what I want to do today is a little bit different, in that I want to focus on a particular single example of misinformation, a particular statement that has been made over and over again in the literature. And what we can do with this is, I think it'll, first of all, I hope it'll help you understand legitimate parental alienation theory. But I think what we'll see, what's interesting, is a pattern, that this has happened so many times that we can see a pattern in the way that this false information is passed down from one author to the next. So the particular thing we want to talk about is I call quotations that misquote. So these are situations in which a writer will claim that they're quoting something about parental alienation theory, or that they're quoting an author, but they misquote what is said, and that's very misleading. So here's an example of a quotation that misquote. Let's read this together. Parental alienation proponents have assumed that visitation resistance or contact refusal is in itself evidence that the preferred parent has carried out a campaign of denigration against the non-preferred parent. Well, what's wrong with that statement? It's the word assume. You know, the writer said parental alienations assume that in any case of contact refusal, the reason is that the preferred parent has indoctrinated the child to refuse the rejected parent. But that's incorrect. And if you really are familiar with the literature, you know that no proponent of parental alienation assumes that the contact refusal is always caused by indoctrination by the preferred parent. In fact, we all understand that a child might engage in contact refusal, and there are a number of different reasons why that might happen. It might be alienation, it might be estrangement, it might be something in the child like separation anxiety, it might simply be a very stubborn child, it might be other external circumstances. In other words, we would never assume that just because the child is rejecting a parent, that the reason is the alienating behaviors by the other parent. We have to investigate. And in other words, to demonstrate parental alienation, we have to show that the child has certain kinds of behaviors that they're manifesting, but also that there's evidence of alienating behaviors by the preferred parent. We don't assume that those alienating behaviors has happened just because of contact refusal. So I have a little question for you to think about. This is called a quiz question. How many times has this misinformation occurred in professional publications or presentations? And I'm talking about the same misinformation. In other words, the idea that what we say is that we assume that all contact refusal is caused by an alienating parent. That's an incorrect statement, but that incorrect statement has been made over and over and over again in published literature. So here's my question. I want you to think about how many times do you think that has happened? And here's the answer, that my colleagues and I investigated this, and we searched a lot of documents about parental alienation, and we found that this same misinformation occurred at least 94 times. I think it's actually more than that now. But in the paper that we published, we had 94 examples. We found a way to study these examples. We had 94 examples of these quotations, and it's called citation analysis of misinformation. And we published this in a paper, which you can see here. It's called Scholarly Rumors, Citation Analysis of Vast Misinformation Regarding Parental Alienation Theory. So this was published a few weeks ago in an important journal called Behavioral Sciences and the Law. And it's easy to get this article if you want it. I'll mention later how to do that. So let me explain a little bit about citation analysis. Citation analysis involves taking a number of quotations or a number of references that have occurred in different journals, and you look at their connections. In other words, have some articles cited other articles? In other words, has the misinformation been passed down from one article, from one author to another to another? That's what we mean by the analysis of the citations. And so first of all, let me show you how this is distributed over a number of years. So we had 94 examples. And if you look at this graph, you can see that these examples occurred between 1994 and last year in 2022, that over almost 30 years, these 94 examples of misinformation occurred. And it's because one author cited another one, and so on. And so the misinformation goes down this daisy chain of bad facts. Well, let me show you this in a little bit different way. The next picture is an interesting and perhaps somewhat confusing picture, but there are a series of dots, or actually the series of circles. And these are the 94. I said there were 94 examples of misinformation. Well, here they are. Each circle is either a published paper or a presentation or a document. Some of these are legal documents, some of them are government documents. And each one has a name, which is the author of that particular document. And if you can see on the left-hand side is where it starts. The thing on the left-hand side is the very first example, and that was 1994. And then there are more and more examples up to the present time. And on the right-hand side of this figure are material that was published in 2022. So these are simply the documents that we came up with. But the real question is, how are they connected? In other words, did one author cite another one and cited another one, and so on? And the answer is yes, they did. So the next slide is also a little bit complicated, but it shows the connections. All these lines represent a citation. In other words, if you look at the left side, there's the one who started all this. That article is cited, it looks like 7 or 8 times by different people. These lines, in citation analysis, in case you're interested, these lines are called edges, and they're little arrows. If you look closely enough, you can see that each one is a little arrow showing that information went from one document to the next. And the little circles are called nodes. So I realize that this big picture is a little bit confusing, so I want to give you a close-up. And the next slide is a close-up of the left-hand end. So this is where all this started in 1994. And there was an article by a law student named Wood, And she published an article in a law school, a law review, which is a kind of journal that's published in law schools. And so you can see that Wood started in 1994, and she only has arrows that are going away. In other words, she was cited, looks like it's 7 or 8 times, by other authors. So since she was the very beginning, there are no arrows going into her, but the arrows are all going out of that document into other documents. So that's pretty easy to see. But if you go to the right-hand end, which is current time, there were several documents in the year 2022 at the very right-hand end. For instance, there's a book by a person named Mercer. And there were several chapters in that book that are included in this research. I realize this is kind of a complicated picture, but if you're able to look closely, you'll see that all the arrows are going from left to right, and that it shows many examples of where one article is being quoted by another one. And this whole study shows that all these examples of misinformation don't just occur randomly or sporadically, that there's a pattern to it. And the pattern goes, it starts in 1994 and extends all the way to the year 2022. And it's going to extend even further. Unless this is interrupted, it's going to go on and on for many more years, and it's going to expand. So what about this? Why does this happen? Let's think about the causes and the solutions and perhaps future research that we might undertake to understand this better. So we use this phrase from epidemiology. We consider this an epidemic of misinformation. And so here are some of the causes. And I refer to these as systemic causes or systemic flaw, meaning that there's the same flaw happen over and over again. It's not just that one author did something and another author did something else and so on. We feel that there's a pattern to how this misinformation spread over a 30-year period. And it's called confirmation bias. Confirmation bias is a well-known cognitive bias in which a person already has an opinion about something. And so when they write something or they read something new, they put the new information, they warp it or they bias it or they slant it in a way that fits their own preconception. That's called confirmation bias. And I mentioned here an echo chamber because if you have a group of people who all have the same biases and they read each other and then they quote each other, it's kind of like an echo chamber. So that's one reason we think why this misinformation has flowed over almost 30 years. And I'm telling you here the results. I mean, in the actual research and the paper that we publish, we give an example, a very specific example of where a particular author quoted something from somebody else, and then they misinterpreted it in a way that reflected their own preconceptions. So confirmation bias is one explanation for why this happens over and over again. Another explanation is very simple. It's sloppy research. That what people do is they quote each other, colleagues and friends, and they don't go back to the original documents or the original books, the original sources. They quote what's called secondary sources or tertiary sources. So by doing that, they perpetuate the false information that was in the original article. If they had gone back to the original writings of other parental alienation scholars or people like Richard Gardner, who started this discussion of parental alienation in the 1980s, they would have found that he did not say the things that are attributed to him. So that's another underlying explanation, sloppy research. I realize that is a colloquial term, but that's what it is. Another kind of reason that might be harder to understand, and it's a little bit speculative, is that alienating parents have a certain mindset. In other words, they have false ideas about the rejected parent that they hold very strongly, and they convey these false ideas to their children, but also to other people, their neighbors, their friends, doctors, investigators, and so on. And so they transfer their own false mindset to these other people. And these other people, writers and psychologists and attorneys, adopt the mindset of the original alienating parent, which in these opinions are held very strongly. So that's a possible. I don't know exactly how you would prove that, but so that's why I say it's a little bit speculative. But it's another explanation for why the same misinformation is propagated over and over again. So I want to talk a little bit about what to do about this, or solutions for this epidemic of misinformation. So we are going to use this research as a way to campaign and to get things retracted. We're going to try to get some of these articles, of these 94 articles, corrected, and we're going to try to get some of them retracted, especially the more egregious ones. And in fact, right now, we're working on a book that we consider very egregious, and we're trying to get that book removed from publication. What else can we do? Well, we can educate everybody. We can educate the general public about what's really happening, both about the legitimate parental alienation research and this misinformation about parental alienation research. And not just the general public, but mental health professionals and legal professionals need to understand that everything they read about this topic is not correct, and they really have to sort through the legitimate writing from the false writings about this topic. What else can we do? Well, we can encourage people to go back to the original sources. For instance, going back to the original books written by Richard Gardner would help clarify a lot of this misinformation. And not just Gardner, but other people who have written on this topic have been misquoted. And there's another approach that I think would be neat to do if it's possible, which is to try to get the proponents of parental alienation and the critics of parental alienation to collaborate in writing projects or in research projects. In other words, rather than argue with each other, why don't we sit down and try to collaborate in some kind of research project? Just as a simple example is, it's a complex process to separate alienation from estrangement. So why don't we sit down and see if we can figure out a systematic way to do that, that we all agree on. So those are some solutions to this epidemic of misinformation. I want to talk a little bit about some future research that we're thinking about. One of the outcomes of this kind of research, I showed you that complicated picture with all these lines going back and forth, is you can find patterns which are not otherwise obvious. For instance, we have looked into this and we found that there's a certain group of mental health professionals, and there's a certain journal that's published for mental health professionals that are responsible for about 1/3 of those 94 examples. So it's not just evenly distributed among a lot of different mental health journals, that there's a specific journal, and the editors of that journal have themselves over and over again participated in this misinformation. So that would be interesting to write about that. And that's a follow-up to the research that I've been describing here. Or another type of follow-up is that about 1/3 of those 94 examples were created by a group of law school professors. And that's not random either. There's a specific group of maybe 5 or 6 law school professors and a couple of legal organizations that created about 1/3 of those examples of misinformation. So that would be an interesting topic for an article. So here's one more, which is perhaps the most serious possible outcome or possible topic. And I have a little diagram here that says spread of information, and it starts with flawed journal articles. In other words, that's what I've been telling you about already. We found 94 journal articles that we consider flawed. Well, what becomes of that? There's a big red arrow here, and the next picture shows flawed testimony. In other words, that if psychologists or psychiatrists or other experts read these articles and adopt false information, they might be an expert in a case, and they might go to court, and they might then testify about the information that's mistaken. So the next, what would happen then? The next possibility is the judge might make a wrong decision. In other words, the judge might rely on the bad information that the expert has testified to, and the expert has relied on an article that has misinformation. And so the decision about a family law situation might be seriously mistaken. And people can get injured. Children might be injured, or families might be injured because of the mistaken decisions made by judges, and then later by appellate courts. In other words, a lot of times things go from a trial court up the line to an appellate court, and the appellate court might rely on the same misinformation. So in our research, we did not reach into this. We stuck with journal articles and presentations and a couple of legal briefs, meaning arguments that were made by attorneys to courts, but we did not actually look at the possibility that courts themselves made erroneous decisions based on erroneous information that was given to them. So that would be really helpful. That would be an important step, is to try to do that. So actually, if any of you happen to be interested in working on that project, let me know. It would probably, you would probably need to be an attorney or a law student, because it would involve searching legal databases of cases to see if you can come up with examples of what I'm talking about. So let me remind you the name of this article that I've been describing. It was published in a journal called Behavioral Sciences and the Law, and the name of it is Scholarly Rumors, Citation Analysis of Vast Misinformation Regarding Parental Alienation Theory. You can get it for free. This is an article. It's called free access, meaning that there's no open access. It means there's no fee to download the article. And you can find it if you just put in my name, William Bernet, and then the word rumors, because the name of the article is Scholarly Rumors, and it'll pop up, and then it'll take you to the actual article, and you can download a PDF. And so the article itself has that big graph that I showed you a little while ago. But there's also an appendix which has the actual quotations. It's a lengthy appendix. It's not published. You have to go online to find the appendix. But it has all 94 of the quotations in which misinformation appeared. So thank you for your attention today. I want to mention my organization. I'm the president of an organization, Parental Alienation Study Group. And if you're interested in this topic, or if you want more information about parental alienation, look up our website, which is www.pasg.info. And also, if you could join PASG by going to that website and then indicating your interest by saying contact us. So I hope you learned something from this presentation. And like I said, I think that this kind of material can help listeners understand what is a correct parental alienation theory, but can also help you understand incorrect information that is widely distributed. And if you're interested in this topic, it's really important to be able to separate one from the other. Thank you for your attention. Goodbye.
Sadly, too many know the pain and trauma associated with parental and grandparent alienation. Family Access, Fighting for Children's Rights, will present an important international virtual conference on October the 13th through the 15th, 2023. The conference, entitled Alienation, The Truth Regarding the Trauma and Abuse, will feature world-renowned experts in the field of alienation. You'll join the conference event coordinator Elaine Cobb and moderator Megan Hunter as they introduce you to keynote speaker Dr. Edward Kruk. Plus, you'll hear important presentations from Dr. Joshua Coleman, Lisa Rothfuss, Dr. Mary Alvarez, Chris Smith, Bill Eddy, Dr. Noel Hunter, Dr. Sue Kornblum, Dr. William Bernet, Megan Hunter, and Jordan Traeger. Join the many attendees already securing their spot for the conference entitled Alienation, The Truth Regarding the Trauma and Abuse. For information, visit familyaccess.info for all the details. This special conference is being hosted by Family Access, Fighting for Children's Rights, Steel Partners Foundation, and PASCA, Parental Alienation is Child Abuse.
On our next Families Divided TV episode, Randy Flood will share with us the top 5 mistakes rejected targeted parents make.